When you hear about Jamaica's government, what are some of the descriptive words that comes to mind? Where did Jamaica get its governance policies? What are some of the influences behind how they maneuver? How different are their operations to that of other highly industrialized nations or that of ex-colonial countries? Pull up a chair and really open your minds as we delve into this pertinent conversation.
The Jam Fam family. Jam Fam, come hang with me. Yeah.
Hello, Wagwan. Big up yourself. Whether you're there yard or you're there abroad. Welcome back to another episode of Life with the Jam Fam. And today we're going to be talking about some of the myths and some of the stories that surrounds Jamaica government system and explore how some of these came about in the first place and what are some of the ways in which we as Jamaicans can see it and add to building out a better system for ourselves. Let's start off with exploring some of the myths that we frequently hear, or some of the stories that we frequently hear about the Jamaican government, where they started and the impact they've had on the nation and who stand to gain from it. So some of the descriptive words that we hear in reference to Jamaica's government are corrupt, bureaucratic, bribe-oriented, inefficient, self-centered, sellouts, inept, and other such disparaging words and phrases. Whilst many people would say that all of those things are true, the fact is that Jamaica got its governing policies first from the British. The bureaucracy, the bribery, and the ineptitude are all legacy of the structure in place before independence. They were designed to exclude the average Bantu Jamaicans after emancipation, making assimilation so difficult that it eliminates them from social integration and economic advancement in a lot of scenarios. Many of the policies and procedures were later influenced by United States interference in the region's politics and other organizations that have been set up to support, so to speak, countries who are developing their infrastructures so that they too can become industrialized nations in the future. Countries right across Central and South America and the Caribbean suddenly became weaponized with all sorts of ammunition, none of which were produced in those regions. And electoral politics was used to polarize the people, creating civil unrest among our people. There were constant meddling and interference that gave rise to economic challenges, reduction in manufacturing industry, and also this was at the same time when markets were evolving, and before long we see that Jamaica, that was an economic powerhouse, became almost a poorhouse within a decade. Of course, this was all blamed on socialist ideals and poor governance. However, if those who have lived in other countries really assess the governance there and see the many comparison, they would realize that these stories are far from absolute truth. Jamaican governance became comparable with other ex-colonial countries that are not seen as successful. Have you noticed these are usually countries with resources that other countries are desperate to get their hands on? Have you noticed the ones that excel are strategic points of trade or financial haven, and therefore their reputation need to be squeaky clean?
Has favored rich countries much more than poor countries.
The
financial system, with mostly European and American banks, the rich countries. And so rich countries raise huge funds to carry out their projects, while poor countries to carry out projects we know. That is to say, to do things we know, refineries, food, agricultural industries. We know how to do that. Well, they can't raise money. What I want to add, excuse me, I interrupt you. What I want to add is that we have often said in recent years that poor countries were not developing because of corruption. We had to find a reason. It's corruption, the informal economy. These people are corrupt. There is an informal economy. They do not respect the rules. They are corrupt. Some even went further by saying that they are a bit lazy. It has always been a bit like that. And we found the same kind of debate when there was the sovereign debt crisis in Europe, where we called the southern countries pig. They were called Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. They were called the pig. They were said to be lazy, that they were in the informal, that they were not like the Germans and the French. This debate already existed with African countries. They don't work, they are lazy. They don't have good training, they are corrupt. Very well, that's what we said. If tomorrow I were given the reins of Congo Brazzaville, and I was told what the formula is in the current conditions to get it out of underdevelopment and make the economy take off, it would be extremely complicated, and I would tell you that I don't have the solution. Because it's a country, in fact, that does not have control over development at all. Because it does not have access to financing, as I've said. Because it does not control the main good it produces. Because it does not control the volume and the price. And so developing a country under these conditions is extremely difficult. So corruption is actually a collateral effect. The real problem is the World Trade Organization and the financial system as it was created. Would you say that there has been a stranglehold by the northern countries? I'll explain, for example. We are looking for what the exit routes are, and especially by whom. Because you may have the preconceived idea of, yes, the northern countries are going to help the southern countries again. But in fact, it is because there is a stranglehold and also an enrichment of the northern countries thanks to and by the southern countries. For example, Zambia just had extra time to pay back, but the debt was not written off or reduced, etc. There are also negotiations on the next contributions of rich countries for the upcoming 3-year period, which will soon begin and should end in December 2024.
It's also worth noting that in other countries, corruption is called executive orders or bills. Bribery is called lobbying, and of course, bureaucracy is streamlined and relegated to the equal opportunities section of application forms, and the way in which people are directed and streamlined into particular professions for them to go and pursue. In many of these countries, there are still inefficiency and ineptitude that abounds. And of course, in Jamaica, there are certain things that definitely can cause frustration and aggravation when compared to living in other countries. And that is without dispute. In the same way that we have companies do disservice to consumers here in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, there are equally those companies in other countries. And in fact, they are doing so to ensure that they make their shareholders richer. Oftentimes, some of these are not reported on mass media in other countries as frequently or as readily as it would be in Jamaica for lots of reasons. However, there are many documentaries that have been produced and created explaining some of these challenges that are at the hands of companies trying to do disservice to consumers at their expense in order to profit their shareholders. It is necessary for Jamaicans to be exposed to the narratives that they hear in the island, for them to believe that nothing has changed and seek an exit to other parts of the world. However, it would also be profitable for Jamaicans to hear about the narratives of these scenarios in other countries, because then it would give them a totally different perspective on matters. The way in which we often hear about Jamaica's governance makes it more apparent in the minds of many Jamaicans that they need to flee for a better life, rather than those countries need Jamaicans to fill certain job shortages in their respective sectors. That's the case because then who needs who? If Jamaicans need to go there to get jobs, then Jamaicans need them. If they need Jamaicans to come there to do those jobs, then they need Jamaicans. That's the only reason many of us are welcomed in those countries. Increasingly, it's been made difficult to bring families or process to permanent residents or citizens. Even currently, United States has now joined the European nations, including the UK, with paying people who are prepared to voluntarily offer to leave their countries. Unfortunately, we are living in a use then refuse world, and this is not just limited to inanimate object, it's also transferring to humans. Problem we have is that the myth about the Jamaican government runs so deep, and Jamaicans are constantly being fed that stimulus. It is hard to see the good being done in our country or buy into the vision to build a better and greater Jamaica. Of course, there are unscrupulous individuals, and there are people who may be accountable for embezzling funds. Nevertheless, this oftentimes is the forerunning information that greets us when we are having conversation about the Jamaican government. To defend and protect themselves, Jamaicans would attack plantation and great houses. However, now those establishments have been replaced with the independent government structure, and Jamaicans have not made the mental shift necessary because of the many external interference and deliberate attempts to make independent governance fail. This is not coincidental or by chance, they are by design. All the sanctions, the uprising, the violence, and social decay through music are pretty intentional. Because Jamaica's advancement is under attack, and Jamaicans keep blaming the government rather than taking accountability and seeing the reality for what it really is. Inherited behavior of sabotage to plantation owners now still exists because we, the people, are the government. We own the resources, and our actions build or destroy our country. We are simply ignorantly attacking ourselves through our behavior towards the government, employers, and entrepreneurs. These acts of sabotage exist in areas such as in the area of different forms of theft, mismanagement, rebellion, and spitefulness towards each other, especially if we feel threatened or triggered. The colonial powers wanted to keep their subjects in their place of subjugation, and therefore they knew they had to work intelligently and creatively to multiply our years of subjugated state. They recognized they wouldn't have the same means and resources to attack every generation. Therefore, they were relentless in programming the first and second generation and new arrivals into Jamaica. When the first and second generation accepted the captivity programming, they taught the next generation. And by the fourth generation, no one questioned it because it became culture. The constant drip feeding became the reminder, and decay continues because people have not stepped back to take stock and ameliorate. This culture carries captivity through the generations. Then, when people start to see it as a problem, they believe that they cannot do anything to make a change. And sometimes it's such a difficult landmine to be able to effect change. However, change and solution in every country, century, and generation are started by and carried out by the populace. We can no longer overquote on government contracts or work that we need to do for other individuals and then still do substandard work. We cannot be shortchanging employers when on the job because we feel that they're making profit off of us. Without their profit, we have no jobs. We equally need to understand money, how to make it, use it, and retain it, and stop believing that everyone's wealth comes from fraud or criminal activities. The fact of the matter is that some people simply work smartly and they implement financial literacy to revolutionize their lives. I don't know about you, but since returning to Jamaica, I have not encountered any elected government officials, but experienced the difficulty that these descriptive words and phrases are often referring to. I experience it in banks, with the customs, restaurants, the water company, the electric company office, passport office, and school offices. Those people who feel they have some power and they'll use every last bit of it to oppress others, overcharge or add in made-up fees, treat you less than because of their assumptions, spitefully make you wait for longer than you need to, show no discretion or initiative, cause you to waste hard-earned money, trample your human rights and steal your dignity, and are demeaning because you don't look the part. These are mine and many other people's experience from the government, which are the people who we interact with daily. Disregarding rules, sidestepping regulations, and being a law unto themselves. We are all responsible for the governance of Jamaica. To change the perspective of the electoral government starts with changing our behaviors and perspectives. Show up how you expect others to show up for you. Who benefits from our country's mismanagement? Here are two references that help to support the idea that change starts with people, always. If my people who are called by my name would turn from their ways. Another says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Let's examine the stories and reframe our thinking and play our part in the welfare of Jamaica, tearing down one destructive narrative at a time for the collective improvement of Jamaica, land we love. Let us hear your views and perspective in the comment section below. We look forward to reading your comments. Leona is busy, but may I go disturb her a little. Hey, madam. What's in your do now?
I'm editing my video.
Okay. So how is the editing process going?
It's frustrating.
Why is that?
Because it's not loading.
Okay.
But it's okay.
Well, you've got this. Just take it in your strides. Is there anything I can do to assist you with the process?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to leave you because I can see you've got your concentration face on. So I'm going to let you continue your process. So, bye.
Bye.
Okay, later. My mom and a friend of hers, as you've seen, have been here in the country on holiday, and they're currently in Portland, and they've sent some footage of that to us to show us some stuff that they've discovered. So here I'm going to share it with you too. Nice little view. Nice little view. Look at the python. That python over there. Look at that. Look. Very nice python. Very nice python. Yeah. So beautiful. This is the husk of the coconut. We're in Jamaica at the moment, and that's the jelly. That's the cutlass we use for the jelly coconut. And now we are doing the dried coconut, and this is how they do it here. This is how they do the dry coconut to make cooking oil. So we're going to make some coconut oil, and we are doing the coconut now. That's a little machine that we use to make the coconut, so it's grinding in the mill. Look, this is how it's done manually. That's the manual way of doing the coconut. So look at it. Look now, look. That's coconut. That's the coconut. And this is some of it. So we'll get this out of the husk, out of the shell, and then we'll wash them, and then we'll grate them in the little machine. In that little mill, we'll grate them. We'll just grate them on that little mill.
This is actually a cocoyam leaves that we use for palava sauce. In Ghana, we call this contomere. So we cook it, chop it into smaller pieces, cook it, do some tomato sauce, add this to it, add some salted fish and red oil, and add something called agushi, and we get our palava sauce. You see? So this is the green cocoyam leaves, and I'm chopping it now into smaller pieces. We are just improvising because we don't have a chopping board in the village where we are at the moment. We are in Jamaica, so Jamaicans don't actually eat cocoyam leaf, but Ghanaians eat it. I'm a Ghanaian, so I'm just going to enjoy this coconut leaf, a cocoyam leaf, which is contomere. Cut it. Just press the needle to cut it.
The Jam family. Where I living the good life. We're royal, cruising through the West Indies. fam, enjoying the good life. Jam fam family, the Jam fam family, yeah. Jam fam, come hang with me. The Jam fam family. Jam fam, come hang with me, yeah.
Thanks for staying with us here on this another episode of Life with the Jam Fam. Bye for now, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.